We continue to bring you reaction to the decision to postpone the Finance Minister's budget speech, the very first time ever that something like that has happened in the past 30 years or so. We now have Zimbali Mncube from the Tax and Budget Policy Research Institute for Economic Justice. A very good afternoon to you, Zimbali. Thanks very much for your time. I'm wondering if, for you, this is a good or bad development, given the fact that this postponement centers in the main around that proposal to increase VAT by 2 percentage points.
Good afternoon, Vuyo, and thank you for having us. I think this announcement was a shock to all of us. And on the one hand, it's quite important that the proposal to increase VAT by 2% is what sparked this debate, or where we are right now, particularly because of the impacts that a VAT would have on working class households and the poor. We are of the view that such an increase would have hurt the buying power of consumers, especially those who have low income, because they do not limit, or rather people do not limit their purchasing to only VAT-exempted goods, but they purchase a wider range of goods in the market. But I think it's important to recognize that we do need to increase taxes to fund our needs as a country. The question is, are there other alternative ways that are more progressive that should be considered when we are tabling, or when the minister is tabling the budget? And I think from our side as the IG, we've continuously called for taxing the wealthy, as well as imposing a luxury VAT, which is not like the one that is proposed or was going to be proposed today.
But then, I mean, as some people have raised, I mean, my previous guests, I mean, spoke about this as well. I mean, we've had large-scale looting of resources over the years. And the fact of the matter is that we don't have a strategy to take the country forward. People have been talking about bits and pieces of it and what needs to happen, but no real commitment to it all. We've been promised a social compact that would ensure that everyone involved gets to understand what needs to happen, but also what they would have to sacrifice to make that reality happen. Now, we've got a couple of weeks for, at the very least, the DA and the ANC to arrive at something that can take us forward. What, in your view, should be the or big parts of that or elements of that conversation?
Yeah, I think the conversation shouldn't be just limited to the issue of a VAT increase. It should include the actual fiscal outlook and the fiscal framework, because time and again, the National Treasury has tabled a budget that is centered on a fiscal strategy that cuts government expenditure in real terms, and that has choked resourcing to public services such as healthcare and education. And so it needs to be a budget that is squarely centered on ensuring that those who cannot support themselves have access to quality healthcare and education, so that we can improve health and education outcomes. It needs to be based on resourcing these key services, but also it needs to be on the basis of ensuring that those who earn more pay their fair share. So the principle of taxing people to fund basic services is still important. but we need to consider the impact that the revenue proposals we're putting forward has on different groups of people in our society. I think there's also a need to entertain debt strategies that have been put forward in the past by the National Treasury. We know and acknowledge that debt service costs take up a large share of the budget, and this harms the room that government has to actually fund these services I've spoken about. And so there needs to be also a conversation around how do we actually reduce the cost of debt? What role can the South African Reserve Bank play, particularly in reducing interest rates, as well as the role of developmental financial institutions in supporting key sectors such as manufacturing, tourism, and other labor-intensive sectors. And this needs to be as part of a broader strategy to transform the structure of the economy.
Onu, I'm reminded by your point about focusing on the cost of debt issue, but what are the implications of the cost of, or what are the costs to our fiscals of heavily taxing the rich?
Well, I think if this proposal is paired with capital controls and adequate measures to ensure that there are no illicit financial flows, there are actually more benefits than costs to such a proposal, because it can fund and expand the social relief of distress grant. It can help mitigate against hunger. It can help us scale up public employment programs. And so we just need to open up the conversation. I think earlier on you raised the point that what needs to be the conversations between the DA and the ANC. And I think that is the key challenge that we faced in the country, that the budget and the budget policy process has been confined and closed to a small group of technocrats. And so we need to open up that space such that different voices genuinely contribute to shaping what is the agenda and what are the priorities in the budget. And I think part of what has happened today reveals the need for the country itself to open up the space, including to civil society and broader population, to make an input into what are the priorities in the budget. And this is an opportunity that I think if we only limit or the conversation is limited to the DA and the ANC, it's unlikely to reflect the democracy that we should be aspiring to in the country.
Speaking of revelations, a lot of people were looking forward to the minister revealing what the government's thinking is on the back of some rather disturbing events around geopolitics, where we saw the United States, President Donald Trump, of course, reducing or freezing aid that would have gone to assisting people in our country, especially living with HIV and AIDS. One wonders whether these dramatic events of today do offer an opportunity to perhaps strengthen and develop thinking around what needs to happen next.
Indeed, I think that's very important, Will, because it not only affects the people in the healthcare sector and their servicing, but it speaks to the broader healthcare system to say, how is it funded and where is the money to sustain it coming from? Recently, we've seen that even doctors have been protesting because of the lack of jobs, whilst our healthcare system is struggling to support people. People have, revealed that they wait in long queues to be serviced. And so I think we were hoping as well to hear today what measures would the government have taken to ensure that we are protected from external factors, such as the issue that has recently happened with the U.S. Tension.
And that's where we're going to leave it for now. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciated the IAJ, for example, that Zimbali Mncube represents, has been one of those organizations that have been very active, especially when it comes to taking care of millions of South Africans who remain desperate because they can't find a job for themselves.